Good morning, viewers. This is a special program and not Good Morning Ghana. We have in the studio His Holiness Bhatti Theatre Swami Krishnapad, the world leader of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON, popularly known as the Hare Krishna movement. He is currently on a 35-country world tour, which has already taken him to England, France, Sweden, Switzerland, Australia, South Africa, and Cote d'Ivoire, and now in Ghana. You're welcome to the studio.
We're very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
I'm reading the curriculum vitae of His Holiness Bhatti Theatre Swami Krishnapad. Bhatti Theatre Swami Krishnapad was born John E. Favors in a pious, God-fearing family. As a child evangelist, he appeared regularly on television. As a young man, he was a leader in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s civil rights movement. At Princeton University, he became president of the Student Council and also served as chairman of the Third World Coalition. Although his main degree is in philosophy and psychology, he has received accolades in many other fields, including politics, African studies, Indology, and international law. His Holiness has served as assistant coordinator for penal reform programs in the United States of America, especially in New Jersey, Office of the Public Defender, as a director of several drug abuse clinics in the United States. In addition, he has been a special consultant for educational testing services in the United States of America. Bhatti Theatre Swami Krishnapad gained international recognition as a representative of the Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust, particularly for his outstanding work with scholars in the formerly communist countries of the Eastern Europe. As the only African-American Vaishnava guru in the world, Bhatti Theatre Swami directly oversees projects in the United States, particularly Washington, D.C., Potomac, Maryland, Detroit, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, West Africa, South Africa, Switzerland, France, and Australia. He also serves as a director of the American Federation of Vaishnava Colleges and Schools. In the United States, Bhatti Theatre Swami is the founder and director of the Institute of Applied Spiritual Technology, director of the International Committee for Urban Spiritual Development, and one of the international coordinators of the 7th Pan-African Congress. Reflecting his worldwide range of interests, he is also a member of the Institute of Nautic Sciences, the Center for Defense Information, the United Nations Association for Africa, the National Peace Institute Foundation, the World Future Society, and the Global Forum of Spiritual and Parliamentary Leaders. A specialist in international relations and conflict resolution, Bhatti Theatre Swami constantly travels around the world and has become a spiritual consultant to many high-ranking members of the United Nations, to various celebrities, and to several chiefs, kings, and high court judges. In 1990, His Holiness was coronated as a high chief in Warri, Nigeria, in recognition of his outstanding work in Africa and the world. In recent years, he has met several times with the then President Nelson Mandela of South Africa to share views and strategies for world peace. In addition to encouraging self-sufficiency through the development of schools, clinics, farm projects, and cottage industries, Bhatti Theatre Swami conducts seminars on principles of centered leadership, spiritual development, interpersonal relations, stress, and time management, and other pertinent topics. He is also acknowledged as valuable resource in the resolution of um, global conflict. So you are welcome again. Reading through your CV.
It's like reading a book. Huh?
It's like reading a book.
Okay.
As a child, you were an evangelist appearing on TV to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. How come that you have become a Hare Krishna guru or spiritual master and not reverend minister?
It's the most natural transition. In other words, I've always been a person who's concerned about helping humanity, an individual who realized the best way to do this is to do a God conscious paradigm. And also, even as a young child, my understanding was that there was so much more than the general scheme of things, that one has to work on themselves for being able to purify the mind, purify the senses, and to be used as an agent for God. So whether from the past, whether my involvement in Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Baha'ism, it has brought me to this understanding now that, as I have in Krishna consciousness, is that there's one God. And the same God is sending different representatives according to time, place, and circumstance. And this same God is mainly interested in how genuine we are in developing purity, and not what particular religion or what particular institution that we are in or we call ourselves.
Oh, how has this society come about? In other words, where is its origin or roots, and what are the goals and objectives of your society?
The Hare Krishna movement is a very vast international organization. It has millions of followers all around the world. Uh, the followers are from many different backgrounds: ethnic, political, cultural, and also religious. One may then wonder, why should someone from another religion be a part of the Hare Krishna movement? Because it is a movement. It is a movement for developing selflessness, compassion, love of God. It's a movement that helps us to understand more about life after death, life on other planets. It's a movement that ultimately helps us to come to a point where we can meet God face to face. The Bible says the pure in heart shall see God. The Hadith says the highest experience in paradise is to have the vision of Allah. And the Bible tells us it's not that any man can know God, but he who is of the Father. So there is a certain level of consciousness where one is in harmony with God's laws to such an extent that that person can perceive, interact, and even be used by God, talk to God. This is our interest in the Krishna movement. We're not just interested in the Friday to Friday type of worship, Saturday to Saturday, or even Sunday to Sunday. Our concern is that we're all spiritual beings undergoing material experiences, that we are ultimately the same. In essence, the soul is the same as God, but we have deviated due to breaking his laws, having some enviousness, and not being able to fulfill our original identity as divine beings. So our activity in the Krishna movement, whether it's through our many monasteries that we have all around the world, through our farm projects, in many places we have free clinics, we have alternative schools, we even have our own television shows in many parts of the world. But it's all geared toward trying to solve material problems with spiritual solutions, to use ancient wisdom, confidential knowledge, confidential understanding about the human experience, the human condition, so that we can be able to enjoy life on a higher level, that based on piety and based on high level of spirituality.
So when you are in Hare Krishna, you enjoy higher level of spirituality. How would that come?
Because there is religion, and religion is like a vehicle. People like to ride different types of cars, and that's okay. But the important thing is, can the car take you to where you want to go? And where do you want to go? It's not proper for people to bump each other on the road with their cars, but they should move and do what they have to do. Similarly, it is unhealthy for people to bump each other out the way based on their different religions. Although we know that there are differences, but each person or each group should be allowed to access their theology and to do it with purity that it automatically shows that they are God blessed. So the Krishna movement is not a sectarian movement. We have our own particular, way that we do our rituals. We have our own identity, and we as like a family, we have different issues in our family, like any other institution does. But ultimately, as we are genuine to our philosophy, we realize that it's all based on purity is a major force. Purity is what brings us to back to the spiritual world. Purity is what Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Ramanujacharya, many great teachers, they are telling us three important things. All major religions offer us three special important tenets. They explain to us that we should love God first. More than anything else, we should put nothing before our love of God. Second, they explain to us we should love our neighbor as ourselves. And third, that this is not our home, that we're all ultimately able to return back to the spiritual world. So this is so much that people could come together on if they can avoid vegetarianism, if they can avoid false ego, and if they can develop more sense of compassion and love.
Can you kindly explain briefly your role in the 7th Pan African Congress?
Well, as you mentioned in that long CV, and I apologize, but I do many things. And so it's important for people to know that the Krishna people are very versatile, that we are not just interested in our own institution, we're not just interested in our own happiness, but we're interested in how to make the world a better place. So whether my involvement in world peace organizations, my involvement in cultural organizations, my involvement in different religious organizations in terms of interfaith conferences, is all the same. It's all about how we as spiritual entities can minimize some of the difficulties that we're experiencing in our day-to-day interactions, how we can also use culture, because really the ultimate culture is the culture of love. And ancient cultures bring us a little closer to that culture of love when they're honored in a genuine sense. More modern cultures deal so much more with modernity, with material things, and ancient cultures deal more with community. And so my involvement in some of these international organizations is about how to bring about more healthy community, how to assist in nation building more from a human and spiritual perspective.
You, in your CV, it is mentioned that you coronated in 1990 as a high chief. What is the significance of this coronation as a spiritualist?
It's kind of similar to what we just finished discussing. Religion and spirituality is not just philosophy, but it must be practiced within a community and within relationships. And so the original position of the king or the chief was the king or chief was to be a medium between humans and God, to be able to get the blessings from the ancestors, blessings from the angels, archangels, devas, and by receiving those blessings, to be able to distribute and to empower and to protect and to really care for one's citizens. So uh, in its most pure sense, the chief or king was like a divine father, divine parent, who others would understand, respect, get help from, feel protected, and would be able to be reminded what healthy interactions were. So my involvement as a Western scholar, as an Eastern guru, as an African chief, just again shows how wholesome that our philosophy is and how much we are trying to be active in the world to make a difference.
Well, viewers, this is just introduction. The topic on which we are to interview or help Krishna Pad will help to dilate on is towards total eradication of HIV/AIDS through support, empowerment, education, creation of jobs, protection, and development of the African women. We will open the phone lines at 10 minutes after 9. You can ring to ask questions. The number is 765 700. 765 700. As you are read from your CV again, you are going to tour 35 countries. Can you tell us something about your tour?
Yes. I've already been to Russia, China, so many other countries. Part of this tour is sort of in four-part consideration. The first part of the tour is obviously for me to visit some of the Hare Krishna temples and the projects to see how our own priests and priestesses are doing, to give some advice, offer some vision, and to remind us, our people who have joined our society around the world, that we should be known as those who have spiritual insight in every area. We should be those who, as people study us, they see that we live simply, but we live with integrity, and we live with principle-centered focus, and we live putting God first. The second part of the tour, I write many books. I've written 10 different books that have been translated into 9 different languages. And one area of my books, I focus on leadership. As I travel, I do a lot of book tours and seminars and meet with many VIPs, diplomats, educators to discuss leadership. Every problem that is available has something to do with a crisis in leadership. So we try to remind the leaders that we have a duty to lead first with character, second with competence, third with compassion, and last with courage. Often leaders are not being servant leaders. They're more concerned with just putting their own ideas on the people without looking at the consequences. So we meet with these leaders and we give them books and have discussions. Third, I do a lot of involvement, a lot of interaction with the medical society, the medical community, because we know health and education are two of the most essential things to a mature life. And we discuss about taking care of the physical body, of the mind, and most important, of the soul, and not just looking at only one aspect. And then fourth, we have the chance to meet so often with other religious leaders. And times we organize interfaith conferences, or we have seminars and workshops with other leaders. Even though I'm a Hare Krishna, I speak in churches. I have involvement with imams, especially those who are into Sufism and things of that nature. I have disciples around the world who are Catholic priests, who are nuns, etc. Not just only a part of one type of orientation. So we try to stress that religion should be used to improve on the quality of life of not just our own members of our particular societies, but should be of such that it should improve on the life for everyone by reminding people about God's love.
Now, how does your society view women?
That's always an interesting one, isn't it? We have more women in our society than men worldwide. Women are the carriers of any culture, spiritual culture as well as material culture. We see women, we say Lakshmi, meaning we see women as wealth, women as opulence, we see women as beauty. So something, for instance, like here in Ghana, we have opulence, we have gold. Gold is something that, is very sacred in the sense that it's valuable. It's often used and worn, in special occasions, and it's to be protected. Not something you just fan around, you just throw and you lay here and you lay there. So we see women like that. Valuable, must be protected, must be appreciated, and must be understood and used in the proper way, not an unhealthy way. Now, the other thing is that in our philosophy, our great teachings, especially our Bhagavad Gita, the major book that we use, explains that the soul is the same. The soul in a child, the soul in a man, the soul in a woman, whether one is an African, an Indian, a European, or an Asian, the soul is the same. It's only the physical body that's different. As that is a reality, then we realize that in order to please God, we must not get caught up in unhealthy fragmentations. If we look at the world now, one of the greatest problems is fragmentations. Fragmentations of ethnicity, of racial crisis, of religious fanaticism, so sometimes political divisions that causes all kind of unhealthy problems for the citizens. So this is an issue. If we can have diversity and honor it with unity, but we can honor diversity if we're ready to really have the similar nucleus that we can come and associate with and be able to become energized by. But if we have diversity and if our nucleuses are really different, then the more diversity, the more there will be fragmentation, sectarianism, conflict, and pandemonium.
And you feel the Hare Krishna movement can bring about this unity?
I think we have all the variables that's necessary. But any institution, doesn't matter whether it's my institution, is a Hare Krishna, or a Christian institution, or a Muslim institution, or a commercial institution, or an educational institution, has problems, has hypocrites, has conservatives, has radicals, has all types of people. So the important thing is there enough people who are ready to hold on genuinely to the theology? Bona fide Christians are very wonderful for this world. Bona fide Muslims are very wonderful for this world. Bona fide religionists are very wonderful. But hypocrites, whatever religion they may be, are a distraction and minimize the royal teachings of their particular school and tradition, and they cause more of the problems in the world rather than helping to resolve some of the problems.
What are your views on making marriage institution very strong?
The marriage is so important because the family is a microcosm of the tribe, of the race, and literally of the planet. If the families are in disarray, if families are quarreling, if families are not complementing each other, then we'll see that the races and institutions will have a problem. So we can take these grand problems and take it back to making the family more healthy, and then we'll see that society will become more healthier.
What is your view on the marriage, monogamy or polygamy?
You know, different parts of the world, there is different cultural patterns. The significant thing is chastity and honesty. If one is from a cultural situation where a person is allowed to have more than one wife, then have the wives that you have be loyal to them. They should be loyal to you and take care of their physical, psychological, and most important, spiritual needs.
Share with us more of your advice on how to remedy the HIV/AIDS crisis.
Well, we know this is a tremendous problem for the whole world. In some countries, they're having a 20% reduction in their gross national product just due to AIDS. So it's having a tremendous economic, social, political shift on the planet. There are countries here in the African continent, Central Africa, some parts of South Africa, where in less than 10 years, the average lifespan will go all the way down to about 39 years. 70% of all adults who have AIDS in this world have AIDS and are African. 80% of all children around the world who have AIDS are African. Of the 43 million people who have AIDS right now, HIV, on the planet, 28 million are in the African continent. So we see that it is a very serious issue for the world, but especially for us. Now, people are being confused on how to deal with this. First thing is that we need to have more healthier relationships where we can have more control of what happens when people come together for sex life. More honesty, avoid adultery, fornication, promiscuous activities. Second, we have to be more focused in being able to honor the womb. The womb is very sacred, like women are very sacred. And as women are more honoring the sacredness of their womb, men will honor the sacredness of the womb, then men and women will be so much more careful about how they take care of each other and what they do when it comes to sex involvement. But most important for our viewers and for our leaders, as I travel, I'll be meeting with presidents of countries and many medical specialists to share with them, especially here on the continent, one of the greatest ways we can make a difference is to empower, to educate, facilitate, and equip our women. Whenever you have a problem, you must look and see where that problem is attacking the worst. The problem in Africa, here for us, the greatest attack is on our women. We're the only continent in the world where women have more AIDS than men. 70% of those who are experiencing poverty in Africa are women. 75% of refugees are women and children. So if we can address and give more care and protection to the women, this will automatically give more protection and care to the children, and it will have such a powerful effect in making a major change for everyone. Because from every boy and every girl comes out of a womb of a mother. And so if we give these women who are our mothers, who are our wives, who are our children, if we're able somehow to be able to give more support to them, it will be one of the major ways to make a serious shift, especially on this continent.
What future do you see for our children, as you have talked about all these percentages of women having AIDS in Africa?
Well, 1/3 of the people on the planet are children, and almost half of the people on the African continent are children. Sometimes we say that we have inherited the present from our ancestors. But more important is that we have borrowed the future from our children. So the decisions that we are making now every day will determine what will happen to our children. And this is connected with the AIDS issue. Right now, while we're sitting right here, over 13 million children on the African continent are orphans. And that is increasing like anything because the majority of people who are dying from AIDS are between the age of 25 to 35. By the time they're 35 or so, they have died. So that means you have such an amazing young generation of people who are dying, leaving very small children, in some cases, orphans. And we know what happens when children are not protected by parents. Sometimes they become children soldiers, they become criminals. When a person does not experience love and protection at a young age, it has a traumatic effect on them at a later time. So if we don't address these issues significantly now, our future is going to be very, very problematic, especially in relationship to the children.
Okay, as you are touring the world, shall we hear some of the things you have been telling leaders, especially here in Ghana, about how to combat crime? Now in Ghana, women they are killing women, and now it's turned to killing of husbands killing their wives, and all those things. How will this problem be solved?
Well, I've been addressing it from many different perspectives. But one of the perspectives I've been trying to emphasize is the importance of addressing consciousness, because there's a certain type of conscious individual, the one thinks, that causes a person to be an armed robber. Certain type of consciousness, a part of a person that causes a person to be a racist or an embezzler or whatever. So as we look deeper to see how to alter consciousness, then we can make a difference in the performance or the activities of a person. There's also a certain ground or foundation that engenders violence. Violence has a lot to do with more acceleration of lust and lack of love. Violence and criminality often has to do with economic problems, has to do sometimes with role models that are insufficient. When we have leaders and role models that are seemingly benefiting from crime and deviation. Then the small person, the average person, will look at such individuals and consider this is success. Therefore, let me live and do like this so that I can have some material things for me and my family and I can enjoy. So it starts first from the top. When the leaders and the people who are very prominent in society are living with greater integrity, it will filter down. When we take more care of the needs of the common people, we won't have people in such destitution. So many people are so desperate that they try anything just to get something to eat. When we find ways to address more of the natural needs of the people, we will find that it will minimize crime like anything. So when I meet with the leaders of the prisons or the policemen or the IGP, that we talk about these issues. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.